1969 was a disaster for Hammer. The studio made only 2 movies that year. One was Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed, with Peter Cushing and Freddie Jones. The other, the sci-fi epic Moon 02, was released 3 months after Neil Armstrong's historic walk on the moon and became Hammer's biggest box office bomb of all time. Who wants to watch a movie about moon landings when one can watch the real thing on TV? 1970, though, seemed more stable as the studio released 6 movies. Besides Taste the Blood of Dracula and Scars of Dracula, both starring Christopher Lee, Hammer released The Vampire Lovers, When the Dinosaurs Ruled the Earth, and Crescendo. The studio also started to produce its next Frankenstein film and asked Jimmy Sangster, who was in the United States at the time, to rewrite a script for the next Frankenstein film. He refused and later stated that the script they sent me to rewrite was the same movie as the first. Hammer sweetened the pot and offered him the producer's job as well. Jimmy stated that he also wanted to direct, and Hammer agreed. He wanted something different, so he completely rewrote the script and turned it into a dark comedy. Instead of being a sociopath, Baron Frankenstein was now a psychopath and a lech. Frankenstein was played by one of Hammer's new rising stars, Ralph Bates. Peter Cushing was never considered. The movie was a critical disaster. I was writer, producer, and director. I was like God, Sangster would later reveal. But because of that, there was no one to tell me where I was going wrong. So in 1970, Hammer released its only Frankenstein film without Peter Cushing. The Horror of Frankenstein.
Victor Frankenstein is a gifted student who is fascinated with anatomy and death. His father, however, forbids him to study medicine at university, and their relationship is strained. When Victor's father threatens to cut off his scientific pursuits, Victor rigs a hunting rifle to explode, making the death appear accidental. With his father gone, Victor inherits the family estate and wealth, giving him the freedom to pursue his experiments without restraint. Victor leaves for university in Vienna, where he quickly excels academically, but behaves with the same selfishness and cruelty that define him at home. He seduces the dean's daughter, impregnates her, and abandons her without remorse. His true passion lies in experimenting with the boundaries of life and death. And he becomes obsessed with the idea of creating life from dead tissue. After returning to his estate, Victor hires Wilhelm, a former classmate, to assist him. Wilhelm is more cautious and morally grounded, but Victor manipulates him into helping gather body parts from executed criminals and fresh corpses. Victor's goal is not noble discovery, but personal glory. He wants to prove he can create life simply because he believes he is superior to everyone around him. Victor assembles a creature from the stolen body parts and eventually succeeds in bringing it to life. The monster is physically imposing but mentally underdeveloped, with limited intelligence and violent tendencies. Instead of recognizing the danger he has unleashed, Victor sees the creature's aggression as a useful tool. He begins directing the monster to eliminate people who inconvenience him or threaten to expose his crimes. Meanwhile, Victor's personal life grows increasingly chaotic. He toys with the affections of Elizabeth, a loyal housemaid. while also engaging in a manipulative affair with Alice, a seductive and scheming woman who hopes to secure a place in his household. His arrogance blinds him to the resentment building around him, and his carelessness allows suspicion to grow. The authorities' investigation begins to lead to Frankenstein as he tries to destroy the monster numerous times without success. Victor hides the creature in an empty vat before the police come to his lab. They bring some witnesses, including a young girl. She inadvertently throws a switch that causes acid to flood the vat, completely dissolving the monster.
All these Hammer movies always have these big bang in the beginning, these great beginning movies where you've got somebody dying or you've got something intriguing. You have a big, powerful opening. And all you have for an opening here is him drawing on a pornographic picture. Oh, wow. No, I thought it was boring. It was an okay film, but as far as Hammers and as far as the first 5, this thing, it deserved the fact that it is the lowest reviewed Frankenstein movie they have. This week's film is The Horror of Frankenstein. It is a 1970 Hammer film. It's their second to last movie in the Frankenstein franchise. It was written, produced, and directed by Jimmy Sangster. The story has it that when they wanted him to write...
Say the great Jimmy Sangster.
I don't know. I think he was weak on this one. He had help writing it, though, with a guy called Jeremy Burnham, who is not known as a writer. This is only one of 2 things he ever wrote. He did do other things, though, as far as making media, but not as a writer. It is different from the rest of the Frankenstein films in the fact that there is no Peter Cushing. They tried to have Ralph Bates. They were trying to start over, reboot the franchise with Ralph Bates, a man they were trying hard to make them the next Hammer star. Ralph Bates goes on to do Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde, and the rest of his life is spent doing mostly TV. Actually, one more thing to note about this film that nobody ever talks about that I kind of looked at is that it's also different from the first 5 in the fact that the art director in the first 5 was a man called Bernard Robinson. He was an art director on a lot of Hammers. He was known for being able to make even the most mundane look expensive. That's one of the reasons also why you always have these great scenes because of him. He, however, had a heart attack. He died suddenly, and they brought in Scott McGregor, who had a lot of stage work as an art director. And I think he did an okay job, but you do see a difference. However, shortly after this film, he died.
The thing is, and I believe it started out from the beginning, and they were all about it, was this was a parody. They were doing satire, tongue-in-cheek, and everything else.
I get it, but I don't think the tongue-in-cheek even worked that well. And he was more of a lech than...
I don't know what scenes we're going to watch. Are we going to watch the scene where he takes his dad out?
Yeah.
That, to me, was a good punch in the groin there.
It was, and I wish they had started the film with that and then put the classroom thing afterwards, because that's what this movie did lack. In most of your early Hammers, you always had that big punch in the beginning to get you set up for the rest of the film. You did not have that.
Some kind of shocking opening. I agree. Then this one didn't really have that.
Let me just show the very, very first scene. Like I said, there's no cold opening. This is only a few seconds. It's to show people this is how it actually opened. Not with a big bang. The first thing you see is this.
Well, to me, it automatically tells you what kind of guy Frankenstein is. He's got this
kind of agree.
And he's sitting there like sizing it up for anatomy class and stuff.
Could have done better, but at least it shows that one, he's interested in anatomy, but he's also very highly sexed.
I get that, and I did cut out the classroom scene because you can't show everything. It does set up the fact that he has contempt for his teachers, and it also introduces all of his buddies who are going to come in later in the film.
The suggestive scene with the slutty maid.
Right, which, by the way...
Both these movies had the first Frankenstein, and this one, they have a slutty maid.
And this slutty maid, she became very big for being rather sexual. Yeah.
So do you think, before we continue,
Who also was in Vampire Lovers, by the way.
Before we continue, do you think that this film, in many ways, since it's a reboot, was trying to echo the original?
Maybe, or just that Sangster had a thing for slutty maids.
Well, yeah, okay.
It was Hammer after.
In the first scenes of the original, you've got the original, the 15-year-old Frankenstein. It's obvious that he's arrogant. He knows that he's the smartest man on earth.
And I did think that too, that maybe he was stealing from his own. But since Sangster wrote the first one too, he would probably lean more towards his own work.
Frankenstein has a close friend. The close friend turns on him. Now, he deals with him completely differently in here than he did in the other movie. There's lots of convention borrowed from the first movie. There's definitely the slutty maid, the good friend that lets him down, the clueless Elizabeth. A lot of what was in the first movie that Sangster wrote is in this movie.
Right.
In one form or another.
Like I said, this woman, Kate Amara, went on to have a rather interesting career because she was also in Vampire Lovers as the governess. But American viewers may know her because she did her work on Dynasty. And the fact that she liked marrying guys who were much younger than she was. So let us set this scene up. Frankenstein, they show him in class having contempt for his teachers, treating all of his friends like chess pieces. And then he comes home and this is what he...
How about letting me go to university then?
I've told you. Your place is here at the castle. You'll see me in my grave before I let you gallivant off to Vienna for the next few years.
There's a bit of dry humor to this.
So those are golden retrievers that I see.
Yeah, because they're all over Germany.
I'm glad he got smoked. Deserved it. What a jerk.
He got smoked. But also, he dies by trying to kill too. So it's like, I know they're setting up the concept that he's just like his daddy because daddy sluts and kills. But daddy don't kill humans. Although he has no respect for humans. None whatsoever.
So we're already on that scene, huh? To me, the next scene, it made up half of the damn trailer. So they already knew this scene was going to be like the money shot. Is that the right way to put it? Yes, this is a money shot. I think so
too. It was interesting how they quickly went there.
Welcome home, Herr Baron.
Thank you, Elise. You're looking remarkably well.
Now it's his time to prove he's taken over Daddy's position by banging Daddy's maid. The other guy, I don't know if we should mention him too, Graham Jones, played his friend. Really not a lot on him. He was also in Vampire Lovers, but he kind of disappears in 1977, and I can't really find out if he's dead or alive. He exists someplace as a newsreader. That's it. Because the thing is that he comes back home and starts meeting all of his old friends.
All of his old friends that have now grown up.
Right. He meets Elizabeth now because, he saves her from bandits. So Daddy says, you got to come over to dinner because, hey, you saved my daughter from bandits. His one friend is now a police lieutenant. Like we didn't see that one going on. And another friend, the one that he was going to take naked pictures of, is now his fiancée.
Are these from the school? Completely different
the first scene from the school, they try to make him all look 16. He comes back home and finds out they're all there, in some respects, respectable citizens within the town. Couple in there with the grave robber and his wife, who we get to meet now. The grave robber, of course, is played by Dennis Price, who was also
a giant of the horror industry, I might add.
Later on, he starts off on stage. In fact, anybody here who knows Kind Hearts and Coronets? Dennis Price was the star of that. He's the one who was killing Alec Guinness's avatars over and over and over again. The only reason, though, he never got big is apparently he had an alcohol problem. He went bankrupt after a bad divorce caused by gambling issues, etc. He had to put himself back together, and that's when he went to horror. If you recognize him, he was actually in The Twins of Evil as the Satanist who wasn't really a Satanist, who was trying to sell the Count on his fake magic.
The guy in charge of the ceremony, right?
Right. But like Tim said, he actually worked with Noel Coward starting off in his career. Well, that says a lot.
So he went downhill from there.
Right. But that's why you see he started working a lot after his 1967 bankruptcy in horror. She is saving grace in this film, if you ask me.
How much further have I got to go?
Yeah, I thought that was funny. She has a baby at home, which means she just gave birth and she's out digging graves. And that lady, too, actually did a lot of theater work. Joan Rice, she did mostly stage work. And she was very funny in here. This is not her only scene. No, I did not do her murder scene. I did do the next scene, though, to show you what a psychopath was, which is something else I want to say, because one of the critics of this film said it was obvious that Sangster was trying to make him more of a psychopath as opposed to the sociopath he was in his earlier films. And I guess that's kind of his motivation. He just likes to hurt people, but that don't really explain why he's putting bodies together. Because if he's that sexual, you think he'd be putting a woman's body together.
That would be more interesting.
This is the scene where his friend knows he's finding
I
body
don't
parts.
know if you can actually say murder. I know what you're saying, though. It's kind of cold-blooded what he did.
It was, but he knew he took the guy's head, and he's already realizing there's something wrong with him. So this sets up this. The friend is having, obviously,
Doubts.
ethic issues and saying, you know what, I'm going back to...
Well, I suggest we dismantle the apparatus.
Nothing would give me greater pleasure.
Then if you will start with the terminals, I'll begin over there.
Right.
Here.
Oh, dear.
Now that is evil.
Yes.
Yes, and of course,
Now... Now, that was just to show you, too, this guy's, like, what somebody said, a critic said, the weird thing about this was he was obviously trying to make him more of a psychopath as opposed to the sociopath of the earlier Frankensteins. And I get that, like I said, but that's still not a motivation.
It's more of a style, I would call it.
it's murder after murder after murder.
Absolutely. And I'm not upset with the murder parts. I'm upset with what's the motivation to sew them together. If they wanted to make him the ultimate puppeteer, they should have shown that. This scene is shortly after this one. He's having dinner again, but this time it is at the castle with Elizabeth and her dad, who still, of course, has no knowledge of what they did to his poor turtle.
Blissfully unaware.
But I put this in because I thought this was a funny scene. And
One
this
of my
was
instructors told me that I worked too fast. Now, he admitted that my work was accurate, but told me that I ought to take longer over. I asked you what you thought, Victor.
Well, I think that would have saved the movie if they made it more obvious that it was a dark comedy. But there's times where it seems to be presented more straightforward, and it suffers that way.
I agree with you because some of the jokes were pretty good. And of course, we forgot to mention that Elizabeth, the one we just saw, was of course Veronica Carlson, who was in Frankenstein, Created Woman, and also was so horribly abused by Dracula in Dracula Has Risen from the Grave. And remember, she just did that film in 2019 that I've got to get a copy of, The House of Gorgon. This, of course, is the awakening of the monster. Because shortly after that, he's got his brain, he puts his brain in, he brings the monster to life. And of course, my hero is walking on.
Well, the brain is the old man, right?
Right, but it hit some glass shards, which is why maybe it's damaged, or it may just be damaged, and because it's always going to happen because the turtle bit him.
Okay, and you were going to mention that that's David Prowse.
How do you do? I'm Victor Frankenstein.
And that was supposed to be funny, but it just wasn't. The funny thing is, for anybody out there, David Prowse, he is the body of Darth Vader. He is the one who he's the one who did all the physical acting before the
Clockwork Orange.
And a Clockwork Orange. Actually, some other weird things. This is not, and what?
And Vampire Circus. He was a strongman in Vampire Circus.
Vampire Circus. He's also in Frankenstein and the Creature from Hell, the next one, the last Frankenstein. The ironic thing about him is several things. One, this is not the first time he played Frankenstein. Anybody here seen Casino Royale, 1967, with David Niven playing James Bond?
Yeah.
Okay, remember At the end of it all, where they're running through the enemy's stronghold and all weird things are happening, the cowboys are running in, you see a Frankenstein creature walking across the set. That was
That's
him.
him.
And the weird thing is, before that point in time, he had actually gone to Hammer and said, look how big I am. Let me be your next monster. And they dismissed him. But after doing a couple of things, Sangster said, nah, you're my creature this time. So this got him on the set. It got him to do, like I said, 2 more Hammer films. Then we get to Darth Vader. I had to say that, though, too, because there's another name I want to mention here, an actor who probably needs to be remembered.
Thank God you're here.
Have you seen it?
I was attacked by this huge man.
Where did this happen?
Upstairs in the laboratory.
It's a
But
very
I was in my
dry,
bedroom
very
when he came
comical
round.
This man right here,
I don't
playing
know.
Henry.
I haven't.
I'm going to pause for a second.
Right.
Because he's actually a very interesting actor. That is John Finch. No relation to Peter, although they did play together. He was in a lot of films and could have been a bigger actor, but he said, I did not want to be a big actor. He, right after this movie, was offered after Sean Connery quit Bond the second time. They offered him the role and Never Let Die, and he said, I want nothing to do with it. He also was supposed to be an alien doing John Hurt's part, but like a week before it started filming, he got bronchitis and ended up in the ICU, so they had to replace him with John Hurt. So
He would have been famous had that not happened.
well, he didn't want to be famous because every time he was offered a really big role, like when the Three Musketeers were made a couple of years after this, he was offered the role of Aramis, which later on went to Richard Chamberlain, and he turned that down. He said, I wanted to work enough to have the money I needed, but I never wanted to be a big actor.
I haven't seen him.
Upstairs.
Yeah.
I thought you were in bed.
Because, you know, he's hiding
Where
them.
is it, Victor?
He's
Come on.
hiding them there.
You know what?
After he gave him a shot to knock him
Well,
out.
what he's done with all his failed experiments
Is
was
this where it
he gives
happened?
him the
Yes.
acid bath.
And,
Yes.
and,
Victor,
and
didn't you hear
in the
anything?
shower, yeah.
Hear what? Where what happened?
I was attacked.
You've been having nightmares again, my dear.
Victor, I have reason to believe that you have been harboring a criminal maniac or worse.
Me. Stay away from there, little girl. Little girl, don't do that.
She just got rid of his monster.
And they never showed it. They just want you to assume that's what happened.
If you didn't think
Well,
that
wait.
before,
This solves it for you. Watch those shoes. Now you know who was in there.
That's a really weird
Let's go ahead
ending.
and- A lot of people throw shade on this film, and maybe there's a good reason for it. There's a couple of really good scenes. There's a couple of really good characters. I think it's interesting because it says a lot more about how Hammer did business than how good the movie was. Because apparently this was like one of those things where they just threw it together. Cushing wasn't available, and they just put it together, and I guess we're out to make some money and have a little bit of fun with it. Historically significant, but a great movie, no.
Well, there's a little bit of history because, first of all, this movie was shot in only 6 weeks, which you can tell. Second, this actually was the first time that Hammer paired up with EMI as a partner because they were trying to get away from American partners. They wanted to do more in country, and they talked to EMI to give them £200,000 to make this movie. EMI at that time was partnering with MGM so they could still get the
A lot more
American
money back in
distributorship.
1970 than it would be today, yeah.
It would be, but still, it's not a whole lot. I don't know if I'd watch this film again. It had some humorous parts, but I don't think the humorous parts were so well brought out as they should have been. It was a dark comedy sometimes, and sometimes it was just dark.
I believe that if you're going to have a Frankenstein movie, I mean, I think the whole narrative of just Frankenstein being a murderer, I think that's a little bit too much subversion on the narrative there.
Will you please get me something to drink?